Today, I want to give you a routine that is for the daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly layers of the PIOS system to help you organize and, more importantly, change your life. So, I wanted to make this channel a little bit more about how to improve your life, how to get to that point of a polymathic existence, like so, and the idea of becoming more polymathic like Da Vinci or like Benjamin Franklin or something like that. I think you need to have a system that allows you to organize all the multifaceted interests that you have. I need to speak properly for this video. But the idea of having a system, that's what I really wanted to go into today. And so the PIOS system, this is not a video about that in particular, but I wanted to show you what I've done with it, and more importantly, talk you through the philosophy of the daily to yearly methodology. So, in my own experience, I found that I wanted multiple layers of extraction when it comes to the personal knowledge management tool that I wanted to use, which is what drove me originally into Airtable, because I could do groups and that gave me another layer. And essentially, I realized that, okay, pretty much all these tools, ClickUp and everything like that, could do a couple layers like projects and tasks, but then they couldn't really quite do. I'm trying to turn this down, but okay, whatever. They couldn't really quite do more than just projects and tasks. It was a two-layer abstraction. And what I found was with Notion, and now Obsidian, I'm able to do multiple different layers down. I like the folder structure. I like having that type of information architecture, if you will. And through that, I'm able to do a lot more. And I found that my system, instead of having like Paramethod or Get Things Done, I use the PIOS, the Polymath Integration Operating System, which is just a matter of pulling many different areas into one thing. And while I'm still tinkering with organizing like the modular degree and where does it fit with the content production system, I think that really those are kind of preferential. I have it in my like quarterly layer, so I can have the mind pillar be focused on learning, but really you could put that anywhere. The actual idea though behind this is the yearly to daily with an archive at the end. So I do kind of steal that idea from Para where there's an archive at the end, but the rest of the layers are all different. And I really wanted to focus on how do you interact with those different layers. To me, there is an input and output for each of the layers, and through the input and output, it allows you to kind of realize, okay, cool, there is this interaction between my weekly planning and my daily action, or my yearly planning and my monthly action. And I think that there's a lot of potential with quarterly. And I think a lot of people forget, including myself, how much you can get done in a quarter. So I even started applying the 12-week year philosophy as well, because I thought to myself, okay, there's a lot that could be done in this time span. And a lot of people don't realize that. So I'm just going to quickly go over the system. There's other videos on this channel when it comes to how do you actually go through, like each set it up. I even have a template I'm working on, but let me share my screen here. So essentially, I need to make sure I'm on the right screen. Okay, cool. So we have the yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily. Let me open this up so you can see what the rest of it says. So I'm just going to quickly go over this. Again, there's other videos about it if you want to learn more about this in particular. But you have the review of last year and planning of the next year. In that planning, it allows you to really think about what can you do in each quarter. I don't necessarily know if I want to click the year on this because I don't know if there's any personal information on there, but maybe actually next year. How about that? We click on this and it goes through a template that I automatically apply to each one. So each one of these different numbers, like the number for the day, the week, the month, the quarter, and the year, leads to a template that's already automatically applied. And so going through here, like what's the ideal theme of this coming year? What are the goals you wish to accomplish? What are the big projects that need to be done? Now, mind you, a lot of this can be rollover from the last year as well. And phase, like this actually impacts you, not just PolyInnovator, but really like what phase of life are you in? So phase to me is an area of interest or maybe a giant endeavor in your life. So maybe you are in the phase of this whole year you're going to work on something at your job, or maybe this whole year you're starting a new hobby and you really want to get good at it, and that hobby is one of your major focuses for that whole year, like you starting up golf or something like that. So for me, I had the phase of like working on my swimming content. I had the phase of building out the Poly Tools directory for my creator brand, that kind of thing. And then you go into the past portion, what happened this year. And this section does tend to get a little bit long, but essentially I'm just writing down from memory what happened. And what might be more ideal is that every time you do the quarterly notes, it might be wise to come in here and add in the details throughout that time span, because I know that there's a lot of people who just don't have the strongest memory. So you review, like, what are you grateful for? And then you go through the quarters. And now this area is kind of fun. There is, let me see, can I do commander? Is it slash command? No. I'm trying to remember where the commander is. Hold on. And let's see, sync. Well, I don't remember the type, but it's like this, sync, embed, or something like that. And you could have a embed that allows you to edit the note within it. And now I'd show you an example, but I think I did in a different video. But essentially, it allows me to embed the quarterly notes within the yearly note. And that allows me to kind of see from a macro perspective, what am I doing in those months or in quarters? And then I could actually kind of do a micro planning ahead of time when I'm doing my yearly note. And then going through, like, I need to get better about doing this part myself, to be honest. But the idea of just trying to, like, think, okay, in 2026, where do I see myself in a year, 5 years, 10 years? And that might be different than 2016 or even 2020. And so I wanted to kind of start keeping track of this more. And then this is more for, like, getting, like I said, getting out of your comfort zone, but more so like just mental expansion, if you will. Getting out of your comfort zone helps push past your preconceived limitations. And so this is actually throughout the whole year. I think it might be more wise to do this on a weekly basis or monthly or even quarterly, but I just have it in the yearly note. And then how well did I accomplish my goals and projects? And so the idea is that you'll link your projects and goals databases from here. And there might be checkboxes, or really you can kind of embed however you want. And then from there, I just want to go back to the chart here. You have the 4 pillars in Ikigai alignment. The 4 pillars philosophy is something I came up with way back when I first started creating content. And essentially, it's the mind, body, spirit, and emotions. Those are the 4 major aspects of life. And each one of these aspects falls into each other, but they also build each other up. So whenever you work on the body, for example, you're going to get a little bit more mental discipline. You're going to get a little bit more mental focus just from the act of the discipline of pushing yourself physically. And from there, you can start thinking about the mind as well. Like when you start working up the mind, you start realizing, okay, I can learn about exercise. I can learn about these different things, learn about the human body. And from that, it'll help improve your body as well. But doing exercise and doing certain kinds of learning can also help your emotional state. It could also help. You can learn more about spirituality and religion, that kind of thing. So these 4 different areas I think are very important. And so I have them on the quarterly because I think that in our life, the actions we take on the monthly, weekly, daily basis don't always align with the virtues and values that we have as people. And so you have these 4 pillars to keep yourself aligned. And you also use Ikigai to be another binder to those things. And so in each one of these different things, for my mind pillar, for example, I have my modular degree, which is all of my educational resources. And then I have a gratitude journal in here, but I don't do it very much. Then my exercise plan, which is just my different methodologies for exercise. And then we have the spirituality, which for me was mainly just meditation on Zen koans. And so those are the things that I wanted to show you on that. And we're going to get to the database here in a second, but I wanted to show you also as well the monthly, weekly, and daily layers. Each one of these has their own purposes, and so I think that it's better to keep track of projects on a monthly basis. It's better to keep your habits tracker on the weekly, so you can kind of just like, okay, check, am I doing my weekly habits? And then daily is more the active folder that I spend most time in. So maybe I could do a better way of organizing this so it's not as deep of a abstraction layer. But I have my content, I have my CRM of personal people, mostly used for my podcast and podcast guests, and then you have the daily notes. So I talked to Constructive ID on one of my podcasts, and on one of his videos, I saw the way he created a database, which was really interesting to me, and I wanted to show it all to you as well. And essentially, you have all these different files, and there's not a good way to visualize them. Granted that this daily note one is not very ideal. I can maybe change it later on. But really, being able to access each one of these different layers in a visual format is way better than the folder ones. You have the weekly notes. Again, I don't do them very well, so I'm preaching to the choir here. But then the monthly, I do them every month. I've always been very good with the monthly ones because they're in my Now page updates on these channels, on this channel. And so each year, it's separated by the each year, which I think is really great. I started it back then. And so this is a great way to just visualize each year. When I think that if there's more details when it comes to the, like if I go in here, maybe in here I can do some sort of habit tracking or perhaps some sort of data collection in the metadata, and then I can visualize it on the actual database, that would be really useful. I think on like the daily notes, Construct by D actually puts pictures of how he's feeling and what he experienced, and that makes a much more visual appealing. So when he went into the daily notes database, you would see the different tags and pictures, and it was much more in depth. I haven't spent enough time on this particular view of this database. And then the quarterly notes, I actually copied the monthly format, and so I basically have just all 4 quarters in each year. Again, there's not much you can do when it comes to visualization, but I think it's still pretty nice to have this just view. And then there's also the decade notes. I'm going to skip the yearly because there's not much point to it. But the decade notes I think is very interesting because a lot of people don't think about that in the format of keeping track of what's going on in life. You never know what you're going to do in your 40s and 50s. You might end up becoming super famous for whatever reason. You become an astronaut or whatever. And then you want to write an autobiography, but you don't have any context to what happened in your previous decades of life. And so by having these notes, it allows you to keep track of all these different things. So the whole point of what I'm trying to create here for you is this routine to allow you to keep track of each aspect to your life. And I think that the time-based organization of this system is the most efficient because we're already working in this format anyways. Even if you're using the para method, you're still going by a daily, weekly basis. And by doing monthly tracking and doing quarterly alignment and then yearly review and planning, preview, there is this continuation of the progress and you can start to steamroll. Like I'm missing some of these layers. I'm not doing the weekly layers very well because there's still some issues I have when it comes to the formatting and actually actively using them. I do the daily notes, but not nearly often enough. And then the yearly notes I do really well with, and the monthly notes I do really well with. And so I just really wanted to go into that. Oh crap, I think I might have broke. Okay, cool. I hope I didn't break the arm. So I should have just moved the camera. The system is a matter of, okay, on the daily notes in the morning, perhaps in the evening as well, so you can do a review of the day. But you go into the daily note, talk about how you feel, check off whether or not you did some habits, and then keep track of all the projects you're trying to do. So for example, I have a database view that automatically shows what I need to do for my content planning on the day. So let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Today. So on here, it basically just tells me all the stuff I need to do for today. And then I also, on my thing here, I have it down here behind my face cam where it'll show me what are the content pieces I need to do today. Because for me, content is one of the most important things for me to get done each day. And so that is a nice way of doing a daily habit of creating content. Even if I miss some days, I at least have it there visually. And then if I miss a day, I can just drag and drop it on the calendar, which is one thing I really love about Obsidian that I brought from Notion that I finally can do in Obsidian. So, and then the weekly notes, you're doing this kind of weekly planning. You can do like a weekly overview, like what is the main point of this week? And going back to the sync embed, that's an idea that I really love. I don't know any way to automate it, but essentially you can embed each of the daily notes within the weekly note, and then you can see the entire week visually, and you can actually edit those notes from within. Now, maybe there's a way to automate it without the sync embed and just do regular embeds. That'd be fine too, but that way you can still at least view it all. But the sync embed is really nice because you could edit those notes from within the weekly note, which you can't do with the built-in feature of Obsidian of embedding. So from there, you have the monthly, and the monthly is really interesting to me because what I'm doing with monthly, let me see if I can share my screen again and do January. You have basically the monthly goals, tasks. I need to get better about doing the task tracking, but you have that space here for it. You do your weekly overview, which I feel like the goals will be something you do at the beginning of the week. The overview would be something you do at the kind of end of the week. And you go through each week, planning it out. And this is where I kind of feel like doing sync embed again would be really helpful because then you can just embed the weekly notes from within here. Although that might get kind of big because if you're embedding the daily notes within the weekly notes and then trying to embed the weekly note within here, that might make the note super long. So that might not be ideal. So maybe what you will just do is just like, okay, 2026, can't type right now, dash, let's see, no, it's 2027. 2027 dash 0, oh, well, I just changed my scene in OBS. You get the point. And basically just do the link right here to each note. And so this experience is very visual And that's why I really like it. Yes, there's a little bit of manual tasks you have to do there, but and then what I normally do is like this whole part up here is the private section, and then after here is where my now page update belongs. So I made this really cool eureka moment where I realized that I was trying to do monthly notes and now page updates as two separate things, when in actuality, I'm doing my now page every month as a blog and vlog. What am I doing now, personally and professionally, in my life? And so I write a little intro, like what's going on, what am I doing? I take a screenshot of my POS, my Obsidian Vault, just to see what it looks like. I don't think there's that much evolution from some months, but then some months there's major evolution, like when I installed this theme. And then like what am I planning, what's coming up, and then I added this section as of a few months ago where I'm like, what am I consuming? Like, is there any videos or topics or movies that I really enjoy? And I think that's kind of a helpful way of keep track of all the different things that you're into. And that way, when you're looking back, you're like, what am I doing, January 2022? And so from there, the monthly notes that I spend a lot of time on, and I need to do better about the private part, but the public part I do a lot of time, and I embed everything into this. But then the quarterly is even more interesting because you can do so many interesting things with it. Going back to screen share. I have a reference for the 12-week year in case I'd ever need to double check on it, and that way if someone downloads a template, you have the link right there too. But again, you're kind of planning out the months. Again, if you want to, you can embed the months here, so the monthly notes. I think, again, when it comes to embedding, it's kind of a personal preference because sometimes you might not want to embed because it's going to make the visual clutter a little bit more egregious, but it's also great for monthly planning. So when I'm doing my quarterly planning in my yearly notes, I'll embed the quarterly notes in here. And then the first thing I see are these little months. I usually delete this part because I know the reference. So the first thing that's in the yearly note are these 3 months. And so I can go in from the yearly notes. Let me move over here. From the yearly note, I can actually just type out all the things I want to do in my quarterly note from within the yearly note, which I think is really helpful. And then you go for the quarterly alignment, 4 pillars. What are the things I'm learning? Am I doing my habits? Personal brand is very important to me. Content is very important to me. The bullet journal is essentially just the journals in general. And then you do the Ikigai check. Are you doing what you love? Are you doing what you're good at? And between the Ikigai and the 4 pillars, it allows you to really keep track of what you're doing as a whole. I already showed you the yearly template earlier, so this is kind of wrapping up this video. The idea of keeping track of all these different layers and how they interact with each other, this is all manual, and that's okay. I know a lot of people are really excited about Claude and embedding AI, but I think there's still a point of having this personal interaction with your own Vault and PKM system. I think that using an AI, whether it's Claude or eventually Jarvis or whatever it may be, that's going to be great. But you still need to have that manual input. It's like that tactile feedback that people get from writing in notebooks, right? I don't like paper. I don't like using notebooks. I don't like using paper agendas. I never ended up using them because I don't like the feeling of paper. And I also just never really found myself using a physical notebook. Digital, I'm very much tech native, digital native, and so I love using these kind of systems, even when they were even way more basic than this. And having that tactile interaction with my journal. I think that writing experience, like, hey, this is what I'm feeling, this is how I can express myself. You can't really do that with AI. Yes, you can talk to it. Maybe the AI will get smart enough to where it can almost be like a psychiatrist to you, and it's listening to you, then writing it down for you, transcribing your ideas. I know a lot of people love doing transcription and like voice to text to do their like the dictation for their notes. That's great, but there's still something different about using your own hands to type it out. And I think that that's a very important aspect to doing the daily notes and even doing the planning on the quarterly, monthly, and yearly layers. So if you have any questions about this, I definitely want to know where you might be struggling on how to use this system, because at this point I've provided the information, but I haven't gotten a lot of feedback back on the usage of it. And so I wanted to make sure I answer any questions. If you have any ideas that you want me to delve into, I'll make more videos about it. Thank you.